The word nihilism is thrown around a lot in discussions about everything everywhere all at once, but I don't think that's what the movie is really about. I believe Everything Everywhere is about family and generational trauma more so than any philosophical answer on how to live life. This idea for this video spawned during a conversation with my friend about Everything Everywhere. I knew they weren't going to like the movie because they're an avid reader of philosophy, even majoring in it in college. They weren't going to be satisfied with the answer to Jobu Tupaki's swirling bucket of bullshit. There is no inherent meaning in the universe, therefore we're free to make our own meaning in the absurdity. See Camus' Sisyphus. We must imagine Sisyphus happy if he's pushing that rock up a hill in hell. This is a part of that optimistic nihilism trend that seems to be popular in a lot of media today. Stuff like Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, which I haven't watched, but that's just what everyone says, and Everything Everywhere. I know some stuff when it comes to philosophy. To me, optimistic nihilism and absurdism are interchangeable. I find the absurdism of Camus isn't particularly comforting, and it's not even something worth studying for most philosophers in academia. I just don't think it's that useful. I also think the word nihilism in optimistic nihilism is a very different interpretation than the original meaning. Friedrich Nietzsche coined the term nihilism and proposed that we need new values in a Christian world because the Christian religion is inherently nihilistic. Nietzsche basically posits that Christianity is nihilistic because it places more value on avoiding sin to get into heaven than on our actual life. Christianity is life-denying and not life-affirming, in Nietzsche's view. Nietzsche says in The Will to Power, "For why has the advent of nihilism become necessary? Because the value we have had hitherto thus draw their final consequence. Because nihilism represents the ultimate logical conclusion of our great values and ideals. Because we must experience nihilism before we can find out what value these values really had. We require sometimes new values." I find Nietzsche much more compelling and useful. We used to have our Christian values, but now God is dead, and we need new values. In this void, Nietzsche proposes a will to power, which is a life-affirming creative force. I'm not a philosophy expert by any means, but this is another interpretation, and it gives context to the word nihilism. It's not us battling nihilism. Nihilism is a void, and we must fill it with new values.
They were nihilists, man.
Huh?
They kept saying they believed in nothing.
Nihilists. Fuck me.
And this is not exactly absurdism, which claims the universe is inherently meaningless, not that values have depreciated over time in our culture. Optimistic nihilism isn't even a thing in philosophical literature. Really, it's something that Kurzgesagt made up and used as a way of comforting their viewers in the fatalistic subject matters of their other videos. Don't get me wrong, I love Kurzgesagt. I think their videos are insanely high quality and have a lot of good science, but their optimistic nihilism philosophy is definitely derivative of absurdism. There isn't much of a systematic approach to important philosophical ideas either, like metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and all that good stuff. That makes philosophy. Optimistic nihilism also feels so internal and heady. Ooh, I'm just some grain of sand in the universe, contemplating my existence. I hate thinking so internally all the time. It makes all my problems worse. Optimistic nihilism is also obtuse and unspecific, particularly when it comes to morals. People can justify whatever they do with this optimistic nihilism logic. Pure greed, non-empathy, completely selfish motivations. There's a human aspect missing. Our lives and minds are shaped by the people around us, especially our families. Everything Everywhere is about seeing how our lives could have been. Everything Everywhere uses concepts like the butterfly effect, which shows infinite branching paths from small decisions throughout one's life. Being able to experience everything is amazing in the movie, granting supernatural powers, but it's also overwhelming and depressing. Evelyn sees what her life could have been if she hadn't moved to the US, opened the laundromat with Waymond, which depresses her. Another perspective, Jobu Tupaki thinks it's all bullshit when confronted with the nonsensical nature of the universe. Family trauma can create a type of nihilism, bitterness at what could have been if your parents weren't the way they were when they raised you. I'm 24, and I'm still figuring out that myself. It seems like my parents had all the answers for me when I was a kid, but I've realized that I need to find my own path into adulthood. Sometimes it can feel like your parents may not have set you up for success. Their doubts or fears can hold you back. At the end of the day, though, your parents are people too. Evelyn just wants respect. At the climax of the film, when Joy calls Evelyn by her first name, Evelyn responds, The relationships are the most important thing in this film. It's not really about our battle against nihilism, or I don't think that's the interesting part of the movie, at least. When asked about the villains in Everything Everywhere, director Daniel Kwan says this: "The villain is ourselves, it's our families, it's the way that we interact with each other and hurt each other," said Kwan. Generational trauma is the most important thing for us to be dealing with right now, because whatever we don't deal with right now is going to be passed on to our kids. And those kids are going to have to solve the world that we fucked up. And if they aren't well-balanced, emotionally intelligent, resilient human beings, then I don't know if you manage to survive the next 50 years. I'm Chinese American myself, and generational trauma used to be something that I was kind of skeptical of. I'm unique amongst Chinese American people because I'm a third-generation immigrant, which means that my family is pretty Americanized. No one in my immediate or extended family knows any Chinese, and we are pretty far from the original culture of our home country. My family doesn't know exactly how my great-granddad managed to immigrate to the U.S. through Angel Island during the time of the Chinese Exclusion Act. He was a Christian minister, so it could have been that. Non-laborers were the only Chinese people allowed in the U.S. at that time. We are heavily influenced by our parents in early childhood, and that is what causes this generational trauma that is so prevalent among immigrant families. Over time, I noticed that in my own life. Even though my parents are loving and raised me well, I could see the recurring themes between generations. How your parents raise you will inevitably influence how you raise your own kids, which can sometimes pass down generational trauma. There's a common theme of judgment and overprotectiveness that I've noticed with a lot of Chinese immigrants especially. Everything Everywhere has plenty of this. James Hong, or Gung Gung, disapproved of Evelyn's life decisions, which is a trait that she carried down when she disapproved of Joy's life decisions. Evelyn finally breaks that cycle of judgment and is able to accept her daughter. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a great movie, and a wonderful representation of what it is to be Chinese American and an immigrant. It's amazing that a movie like that can even get made, really. I'm not gonna lie though, at this point in my research, I found out that Daniel Kwan definitely called this movie optimistic nihilism, which he did admit was pretty close to absurdism, inspired by Camus and such. So, I guess this whole video is pointless, huh? But at the end of the day, the whole universe doesn't have any meaning, so I can live with my incorrect opinion in this absurd universe.
Psych! That's the wrong
philosophical heuristic.
No one gives a shit about that optimistic nihilism, Daniel Kwan. I don't think that the philosophy is the interesting part of this movie. It has all to do with the family and their relationships. That is the crux of this movie, and it's the thing that compelled me the most. Sorry for talking shit at the Daniels. I saw them when I worked at the Oscars, and they seem cool, but at the end of the day, they're filmmakers and not philosophers. There's a tendency in media, and Hollywood especially, to dumb down large philosophical ideas into something that is digestible and easier to understand. Optimistic nihilism is nicely packaged, because it claims that universe has no meaning, therefore we gotta make our own, which is kind of a simplification of absurdism, which is a different interpretation of existentialism, which is a different interpretation of Nietzsche and Kierkegaard, who get their ideas from different philosophical traditions, and so on. When it comes to making a story, though, the actions of the characters come first. That is what builds a compelling story that people want to watch and engage with. Discussing ideas isn't actually the primary point, like in philosophy, but it's telling a good story. It's a nice way to engage with ideas, but oftentimes it's hard to really dig in and analyze when there's an interpretation of a philosophical idea in the background of a story. That's what I like about art and film in particular as well. It's amorphous and not just a way of talking about ideas. Filmmaking is also a collaborative art form, and I'd like to believe that everyone leaves an artistic imprint which can heavily sway the style, mood, and even ideas of a movie. Obviously, the writer and director are the main drivers of story, but to say that actors don't have a part in the interpretation of a script is silly. It's just the fucking theater major. Also, editors can completely change a movie's meaning. See the re-edits of movies as comedies or horrors. And art department, set design, costuming, hair, makeup, and the people running the set itself, assistant directors, script supervisors, production assistants, are all leaving a type of imprint. Also, the producers are doing whatever they do. Also, a studio has to pay for the script, approve it, and invest in it before they even start filming. This has a major influence on what makes it on screen, and if a movie is even made or not.
I hope people are happy. It seems like, because in Hollywood, remember, kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money.
That's why it's kind of amazing that a movie about a first-gen Chinese immigrant family learning to accept each other through verse hopping can even get made in the first place, much less be an Oscar winner for Best Picture. It's a great movie and an achievement, but honestly, my biggest gripe with Everything Everywhere is that it climaxes for so long. It feels like there's like 3 climaxes at the height of the movie, which can feel like a bit much, and definitely made the pace a little weird for me, personally. That's just a structure thing, though, and lends itself to the complexity of the movie. It's hard to write when you have to resolve the Alpha universe, Hot Dog universe, Normal universe, and Rakakuni universe. Alright, this video felt crazy and all over the place, but this is my first YouTube video. And even if it doesn't do well, Hopefully, it can at least convince my philosophy major friend that Everything Everywhere isn't just a mid-representation of absurdism, but a compelling family drama sci-fi about generational trauma, okay? If not, then you know what? It's all pointless. And I guess that's okay in our absurd universe. The question of suicide is all that matters. No!
Kurt Cobain POV.
Got you again. Of course I want this video to do well and convince my friend this shit is not pointless. Do things to become better and learn. Individuate. Don't listen to Jordan Peterson.
Do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God?
All right, that's it. Bye.